2002, on a bright summer afternoon at Clearwater Beach in Florida, tourists enjoyed a perfect day by the ocean. On July 5th, the beach was crowded with families, friends, and solo travelers, all eager to soak up the sun and surf. Clearwater Beach was known for its white sand and gentle waves, making it a popular vacation spot. Among the crowd were lifeguards Mike Johnson, a veteran with years of experience, and Jenna Taylor, a recruit eager to prove herself. They watched over the beachgoers from their tower, scanning the water for any signs of trouble. Nearby, marine biologist Dr. Eric Walters was taking a rare break from his research, enjoying the beach with his daughter Lily. The day started peacefully. Children built sand castles, swimmers enjoyed the warm water, and surfers rode the gentle waves. Dr. Walters watched Lily play by the shore, watching her closely. Mike and Jenna monitored the scene, chatting and sharing stories. Everything seemed idyllic. Clearwater Beach was also home to various marine life, including dolphins, rays, and occasionally sharks. While shark sightings were rare, they were not unheard of. Most sharks in the area were harmless, but there was always the possibility of encountering a more aggressive species, such as the bull shark. As the afternoon progressed, a large group of swimmers ventured further into the water. Among them was a teenager named Alex Mitchell, who had visited the beach with his friends. They laughed and splashed, unaware of the danger lurking beneath the surface. Without warning, chaos erupted. A large fin sliced through the water, heading straight for the group. Panic spread as swimmers realized a shark was among them. Screams filled the air, and people began frantically swimming towards the shore. Mike and Jenna sprang into action, whistling and shouting for everyone to get out of the water. They grabbed their rescue boards and paddled towards the group, hearts pounding with fear and determination. The shark attacked with terrifying speed. Alex was the first to feel its bite, the pain searing through his leg. He screamed, blood mingling with the seawater. The shark, a giant bull shark, circled back for another attack. Mike reached Alex just in time, pulling him onto the rescue board and shielding him from the shark. Jenna helped other swimmers to safety, her eyes scanning for any signs of the predator. The water churned with panic and fear. Seeing the commotion, Dr. Walters ran to the lifeguard tower, offering his expertise. He knew bull sharks were among the most dangerous due to their aggressive nature and presence in shallow waters. With Alex bleeding heavily, Mike and Jenna knew they had to act fast. They paddled furiously towards the shore, the shark following closely. Jenna used her rescue board to fend off the shark, striking it as it came close. The beachgoers watched in horror, helpless to intervene. The shore seemed to take forever, but Mike and Jenna finally made it back with Alex. Lifeguards and volunteers rushed to help, pulling Alex out of the water and applying pressure to his wounds. The bull shark, undeterred, lingered just offshore, its dorsal fin cutting through the waves. The beach was quickly put on lockdown. Lifeguards ordered everyone out of the water and cleared the beach. Knowing the severity of the situation, Dr. Walters called his colleagues at the local Marine Research Center. They needed experts to identify and deal with the rogue shark. Alex was rushed to the nearest hospital, his leg badly injured, but his life was saved thanks to the quick actions of Mike and Jenna. The crowd on the beach was tense, whispers of fear and concern spreading among them. Parents held their children close, and vacationers huddled together, unsure what would happen next. Dr. Walters and his team arrived equipped with boats and tracking equipment. They planned to capture and relocate the shark if possible. They knew it was essential to act quickly before the shark attacked again. Mike, still shaken but determined, volunteered to help. His knowledge of the beach and its waters could prove invaluable. As the experts headed out, tension remained high on the beach. Vacationers watched anxiously, hoping for a resolution. The bull shark's aggressive behavior was unusual and posed a significant threat. The team deployed baited hooks and underwater cameras to track the shark's movements. Hours passed with no sign of the predator. As hope began to wane, the shark reappeared, drawn to the bait. The team acted swiftly, using nets and tranquilizers to subdue it. The struggle was intense, the shark thrashing violently, but eventually, they managed to secure it. Back on the beach, the crowd erupted in relief and cheers as word spread that the shark had been captured. The dangerous predator was to be relocated to a more remote area, far from human activity. Dr. Walters and his team ensured the shark was unharmed and transported to a safer environment. In the aftermath, Clearwater Beach slowly returned to normal. The lockdown was lifted, and swimmers cautiously returned to the water. Lifeguards increased their vigilance, patrolling the beach with renewed determination to keep everyone safe. Alex's recovery was slow but steady. He received countless messages of support and gratitude for his bravery. Mike and Jenna were hailed as heroes, and their quick actions saved lives. The community rallied together, and the ordeal strengthened their bond. The incident left a lasting impact. Beachgoers became more aware of the dangers lurking beneath the waves, and the importance of respecting marine life was emphasized. Dr. Walters continued his research, advocating for better understanding and coexistence with the ocean's predators. In the depths of the Atlantic Ocean, Deborah Lawson found her sanctuary. A sanctuary she hadn't always been brave enough to explore. Deborah had always been enamored with wildlife photography, but her fear of encountering wild animals that could potentially harm her or others had kept her from pursuing her passion. A particular incident solidified this fear for her. While on a photography expedition in the Amazon rainforest, Deborah faced a deadly snake. It had slithered dangerously close to her, its venomous fangs poised to strike. If it weren't for the protection of the glass encampment she was in, Deborah's life might have been extinguished. That encounter had shaken her to the core, instilling a deep-seated fear of the unknown that had held her back for years. However, fate led us down unexpected paths, and for Deborah, that path led straight to the ocean. It was a realm she had always been drawn to, its vastness both exhilarating and humbling. Despite her initial reservations, Deborah was drawn to the underwater world, captivated by its beauty and charisma. Deborah discovered a newfound sense of purpose and passion as she delved deeper into marine photography. She marveled at the ocean's wonders with each dive, from the vibrant coral reefs teeming with life to the majestic creatures that called it home. Armed with her camera and courage, she set out to capture the beauty of this underwater realm, one frame at a time. Over time, Deborah became a seasoned diver and photographer, honing her skills and pushing herself to new depths, literally and figuratively. She explored countless underwater realms, from the Caribbean's crystal-clear waters to the Arctic Ocean's icy depths. With each expedition, she pushed the boundaries of her fears and limitations, immersing herself in the awe-inspiring beauty of the underwater world. One particular expedition stands out in Deborah's memory. It was a journey to the remote waters of the South Pacific, where she had the opportunity to photograph one of the ocean's most elusive shark breeds. It was a dream come true for Deborah, a chance to capture these magnificent predators' raw power and beauty in their natural habitat. As usual, Deborah got her camera gear, diving equipment, and helping hands aboard a vessel for research expeditions. She heard from a diver about a school of rarely seen sharks discovered in the ocean. So she wanted to try her luck and have it revealed to the world to her credit. For a day, they scoured the ocean depths, following whispers and rumors in pursuit of their elusive quarry. Then on the second day of their journey, they received a promising lead. A local fisherman claimed to have spotted some rare sea creatures in a specific ocean part. With renewed determination, Deborah and her crew set course for the coordinates provided, their anticipation building with each passing mile. She didn't even want to know if it was those sharks. When they reached a certain level in the ocean, the acceleration stopped, and Deborah prepared to dive into the water since she probably couldn't have a good view of these sharks from the vessel. Descending into the depths, Deborah was taken aback by the eerie beauty of the underwater landscape. Although she had been underwater several times, the strange rock formations that twisted and turned, and schools of colorful fish darting among the coral reefs with their hypnotic and graceful movements gave Deborah a chill. Deborah didn't dive into the water alone. She went in with one of the crew, and together they navigated through the labyrinth of caves, their excitement mounting with each passing minute. Then suddenly they spotted them, a group of shadowy pictures lurking in the darkness, their sleek form gliding effortlessly through the water. Heart pounding with excitement, Deborah adjusted her camera settings and moved forward to capture images of these elusive sharks. As she focused her lens, a sense of awe washed over her. This was why she had become a photographer, to witness moments of beauty and wonder that few others would ever experience firsthand. When Deborah advanced to capture better photos and videos of the marine life, her fellow crew member, Walhi, was also in the shallow coastal waters. Entranced by the vibrant ocean reefs nearby, Walhi drifted away, thoroughly absorbed in the underwater spectacle. But then, in an instant, everything changed. Without warning, one of the sharks turned and charged towards Deborah with lightning speed. Instinct took over as she darted out of its path, her heart hammering in her chest. Deborah was lucky to have escaped the first attack as the shark's powerful jaws snapped inches from her leg. Panic surged through Deborah as she realized the gravity of her situation. She was not just an observer anymore. She had become the prey in a deadly game of cat and mouse. Desperate for escape, Deborah searched for a way out. But the labyrinthine cave she had entered offered little respite, its twisting passages leading only more profound into the darkness. The time spent inside the cave had an impact on her, and her oxygen began dwindling. When she noticed that, she knew she had no time to waste, and the shark was still on her as well. Drawing on every ounce of courage and determination, Deborah pressed on, her mind racing with possibilities. Then suddenly she spotted it, a narrow crevice in the cave wall, just wide enough for her to squeeze through. Deborah plunged into the narrow opening with the shark hot on her heels, her heart pounding in her ears. The passage was cramped and claustrophobic, the walls closing around her with each passing inch. But she pushed aside her fear, focusing instead on the single-minded goal of survival. As she emerged on the other side, she broke through the surface and removed her oxygen mask, gasping for breath as she gulped in the sweet, life-giving air. But her victory was short-lived. As she looked around, Deborah realized with horror that she was not alone. Another shark, sensing her presence, had gotten close to her on the surface, its dark eyes fixed on her with deadly intent. With nowhere left to run, Deborah knew that she faced a fight for her life. Deborah tried to brace herself for the inevitable confrontation, drawing on her years of diving experience, but the shark gave her no chance as it attacked her almost immediately. Deborah tried to remove the oxygen tank when the shark attacked, so she quickly dodged the shark's attack, her reflexes honed by years of training. And then with a burst of adrenaline-fueled strength, she struck back with the tank. Using the tank as a makeshift weapon, Deborah delivered a series of powerful blows to the shark's vulnerable underbelly. With each strike, she felt a surge of triumph, her fear giving way to a primal sense of exhilaration. However, the shark isn't ready to give up. The shark tried another fatal attack with its jaw opened wide, but Deborah didn't let that get to her. She quickly positioned the tank in its jaw to protect herself, and it worked. The tank got stuck in the shark's jaw, and Deborah utilized the opportunity to escape. As the tension mounted, the other crew members in the water hurried back to the vessel. There, they waited anxiously for Deborah's return. Their concern for her safety was palpable. Some paced restlessly across the deck, unsure of where to begin a search. Relief washed over them when they spotted Deborah in the distance, clutching her camera while wading in the water. They quickly maneuvered the vessel toward her, recognizing that she must be exhausted. They helped her aboard with careful coordination, ensuring her safety and recovery. But even as she basked in her hard-won victory, Deborah knew that her journey was far from over. She still has many adventures to explore. Turquoise waters surrounding the Virgin Islands shimmered as the sun peaked midday. On board a tiny but sturdy sailboat, Zara and Ben were the picture of young love. They embarked on this sailing trip on July 25, 2007, to celebrate their second anniversary. Both avid adventurers planned a week-long exploration of the hidden coves and secluded beaches that dotted the Caribbean archipelago. Zara, a passionate marine conservationist on a break from her studies, was especially eager for glimpses of the vibrant marine life this region was known for. Ben, a photographer with a keen eye and a slightly goofy spirit, was her perfect complement. His love for Zara was as boundless as the ocean they sailed upon. While she possessed a quiet intensity, he brought lightheartedness and laughter to their shared journey. Their days had been filled with swimming in hidden coves, hiking lush island trails, and stargazing on deck, lulled by the rhythm of the waves. It seemed like paradise. Their bond has deepened out here, away from the rush of their city lives. Ben loved watching Zara as she scanned the horizon with excitement, her dark curls whipping in the sea breeze. Zara adored his endless curiosity and his attempts to capture the perfect shot of a dolphin leaping through the waves. Today, they were promised to be just as idyllic, a day trip to a small island further north known for its coral reefs before circling back to their home base that evening. They'd set off early, a picnic basket packed with fresh fruit and sandwiches, laughter filling the air as they charted their route. Zara reveled in the feeling of the wind in the sails, Ben steering with quiet confidence. They'd seen the telltale clouds in the distance, but these Caribbean squalls often blew over as quickly as they appeared. The storm hit with shocking speed. The wind whipped the sea into a churning froth, tearing at the sails. The once steady boat pitched violently. Clinging to the railing, Zara felt a knot of fear twist in her gut. Ben wrestled with the wheel, his face etched with concentration. But nature's fury was relentless. A colossal wave smashed into the side of the boat. The force of the impact ripped the mast clean off, sending it crashing into the water like a felled tree. Zara was thrown overboard, her cries swallowed by the storm's roar. Ben, in a desperate lunge, managed to grab her hand, but the surging sea was too mighty, their grip too weak. As Zara plunged into the swirling darkness below, her last sight was Ben's horror-stricken face. Disoriented and choking, Zara thrashed her way back to the surface. The storm still raged, the rain stinging her eyes. In the chaos of churning waves, she spotted a sliver of wood, the shattered remains of their boat. Gasping for air, she managed to haul herself onto the splintered debris. A wave slammed into her, almost washing her off again. Her muscles screamed in protest, but fear fueled her desperate attempts to stay afloat. Ben surfaced nearby, frantically searching for any sign of Zara. Relief washed over him as he saw her gripping the piece of wreckage. With a surge of strength, he swam against the angry sea, reaching her side. They clung to each other, a lifeline of human touch amidst the vast, lonely ocean. As the storm gradually subsided, the horrifying reality of their situation settled in. Their boat was gone, land was nowhere in sight, and they were adrift in waters that were teeming with sharks. Despite her conservationist knowledge, Zara had never confronted the stark power of these predators up close. Now the fear was primal, a gnawing dread chilling her far more than the ocean spray. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly. Within hours, their throats were parched and their skin burned. A small waterproof container bobbed nearby, the remnants of their picnic supplies. Zara fished it out, revealing a few waterlogged crackers and a bruised apple. They rationed the meager sustenance carefully, knowing it might have to last them days. The night had descended, bringing a fresh wave of terror. They could sense movement in the depths below, shadows circling ominously beneath the wreckage. At first it was subtle bumps and nudges, unsettling but survivable. Then a shark lunged, its teeth tearing into their makeshift raft. They scrambled back as the predator thrashed, tearing off chunks of wood that narrowed their already precarious haven. The next day he brought relentless heat and circling sharks. Ben tried creating a crude spear from a broken oar and a piece of metal, but the sharks were cunning, staying outside his desperate jabs. His frustration grew with each missed attack. Zara fought back tears. Her conservationist's heart rebelled at the cruelty of their situation, the stark reality of the ocean's food chain. Dehydration set in, bringing hallucinations and despair, and time lost all meaning. With every passing hour, their hopes of rescue dwindled. Yet their will to survive, fueled by desperate love for each other, flickered stubbornly. Zara found herself drawing strength from Ben's quiet determination. He, in turn, was inspired by Zara's unwavering belief that they would endure. On the third night, a faint light appeared on the horizon. It was a cargo ship, veered off course, now alerted to the chance of survivors following the storm. It felt like a miracle. They summoned their dwindling energy, waving frantically. But the ship kept its trajectory. Despair threatened to drown them. Then Zara remembered the waterproof flares they kept in the now sunken boat. Dividing their last sips of precious water, she forced herself to dive under the debris, desperately searching the boat's overturned shell. She resurfaced minutes later, clutching the flare canister. Igniting the flare, it sputtered and sparked, spewing scarlet light across the darkening sky. The change in the ship's course was almost immediate. Searchlights swept the water, homing in on the tiny spark of hope. Their ordeal wasn't over, but as rough hands dragged them on board, a wave of relief washed over them. Against all odds, they had survived. They had stared into the abyss of the ocean's indifference, felt the breath of predators, and defied death itself. They would never again look at the sea or each other with the same eye. The ocean stretched out before them, a vast expanse of blue as far as the eye could see. Nathan and Victoria stood on the ship's deck, their hearts pounding excitedly as they prepared for their long-awaited shark cage dive. They had dreamed of this moment for weeks, imagining the thrill of coming face to face with one of the ocean's most feared predators. As they donned their wetsuits and checked their diving equipment, both shared nervous glances, their excitement tinged with a hint of apprehension. They had both heard the stories, the tales of divers who had ventured into the depths only never to return. But they pushed aside their doubts, determined to conquer their fears and experience the wonders beneath the surface. With the cage secured to the side of the boat, they both descended into the water, their anticipation building with each passing moment. The cool embrace of the ocean enveloped them, a welcome relief from the oppressive day's stifling heat. They adjusted their masks and regulators, their breath coming in short, shallow gasps as they prepared to enter the shark-infested waters below. Nathan and Victoria's excitement reached a fever pitch as the cage descended into the depths. They peered through the bars, their eyes scanning the depths for movement. They put out bait to attract the sharks in the water and wait for the creatures to keep coming. And then, suddenly, they saw what they wanted to see. It was a dark shape gliding effortlessly through the water. With a rush of adrenaline, Nathan moved closer to Victoria's side, and together they watched in awe as the shark came closer, its cold black eyes fixed on them with predatory intent. Fear mingled with excitement as they marveled at the sheer power and grace of the creature before them. This was what they had come for, to experience the raw beauty and danger of the ocean in all its glory. But then, without warning, disaster struck. You might expect a different one. A sudden storm descended upon the ocean, lashing the surface with ferocious winds and towering waves. The vessel rocked violently in the churning waters, its hull creaking and groaning under the strain. As Nathan and Victoria watched in horror, they realized they were trapped in the cage at the mercy of the above storm. Panic surged through them as they clung to the cage's bars, their hearts pounding in their chests. With each passing moment, the storm grew more intense, threatening to tear the cage from its moorings and cast it adrift in the unforgiving depths below. And as they looked out at the roiling waters, they knew their situation was dire. Then, as suddenly as it started, the storm stopped. They've become distraught with this storm, so they only want to escape the shark cage. However, they discover something shocking. It refused to work when they pressed the cage winch system that would automatically take them back to the vessel. After several acts, they discovered it had been damaged. They tried to shake the chain to alert those agents on the boat, but they got no response. With their air supplies dwindling and no hope of rescue, Nathan and Victoria knew they had to act fast. Drawing on their training and experience, they began to assess the damage to the cage, searching for any signs of weakness or compromise, and a way to get out of the cage before they died. With each passing minute, Nathan and Victoria felt the weight of their predicament pressing down on them. But they refused to succumb to despair, determined to find a way out of their dire situation. But as they worked, they discovered they had to deal with another serious issue. The sharks continued to circle, their dark forms looming ever closer in the depths. They could feel the creature's predatory gaze upon them with each pass, their cold, lifeless eyes filled with hunger and malice. And as the minutes ticked by, they knew they were running out of time. Those sharks were coming for their bait before the storm, so they returned with full force. A slam at the cage disoriented them, and the winch they had been trying to resolve returned to square one. After several minutes of banging the cage, the bars began to dent. Later, the sharks retreated after they'd consumed the bait and could attack only iron bars. Nathan and Victoria still consider it a miracle that their oxygen wasn't exhausted during the clashes. Nathan tried to force one of the bars big enough for them to escape, but it wasn't easy. Luckily, the agents on top of the vessel had timed their trip, so they decided to pull up the cage after they'd waited a while for Nathan and Victoria to activate the winch system. But they didn't. And then, with a low, ominous groan, the cage began to ascend, its metal frame creaking and groaning under the strain. With each passing moment, Nathan and Victoria held their breath, their eyes fixed on the surface above as they prayed for deliverance from the depths below. And then, finally, after what felt like an eternity, they breached the surface, quickly removed their mask, and gasped for breath as they gulped in the sweet, life-giving air. With tears of relief streaming down their faces, they clung to each other, their hearts overflowing with gratitude for their miraculous escape from the jaws of death. As they looked out at the storm-tossed sea, they knew they would never forget the terror of that fateful day when a simple shark cage dive had turned into a fight for survival against the ocean's fury. The submersible descended into the abyss, its lights piercing the murky depths of the Caribbean Sea off the Yucatan Peninsula. Inside the cramped sphere, 3 researchers sat hunched over controls and monitors. It was a humid July 15, 2003. But down here, the temperature held steady at a bone-chilling 4 degrees Celsius. Leading the team was Dr. Anya Castillo, a Mexican marine biologist whose childhood fascination with the ocean had turned into a lifelong passion. This expedition was the culmination of years of work. Sonar readings had revealed an extensive underwater cave system, untouched, its secrets a potential treasure trove of scientific data. Anya hoped to find new species, unique geological formations, maybe even clues about the ancient Maya civilization. Beside her was Kenji Tanaka, a brilliant but enigmatic Japanese engineer. He had designed their submersible specifically for this type of research. Small and agile, it could navigate tight spaces larger submersibles couldn't dream of reaching. Dr. Thomas Bennett, a brash American biologist specializing in shark behavior, was rounding out the team. Bull sharks in particular were known to frequent these waters, and Thomas's expertise would be vital if they encountered trouble. The day they had started with excitement and meticulous checks. Each piece of equipment had to function flawlessly, thousands of meters below the surface. Now they were explorers venturing into the unknown. The submersible's lights revealed a breathtaking spectacle. Stalactites dripped from the cavern ceilings. Schools of bioluminescent fish flickered through the darkness, and ancient rock formations hinted at untold geological history. As a child, Anya had dreamed of being an astronaut. This felt eerily similar, exploring a frontier just as alien to humans. Her pulse quickened with each discovery. They documented species never seen before and took core samples for geological analysis, Anya's heart singing with the thrill of it all. Then, Kenji's voice crackled over the speakers, his tone urgent. He pointed out a series of tremors on the seismic readout. Something down here was moving, and it was big. Thomas peered at the monitor, his tanned features turning pale. Those weren't random geological shifts. They had a pattern, a rhythm, almost like footsteps. Before he could voice his growing suspicion, the submersible lurched violently. A colossal shape had collided with them, its force throwing them against the walls. Panic flared, followed by a chilling realization. They were under attack. Outside, in the limited visibility, multiple shadowy forms circled. Bull sharks, dozens of them, drawn by the disturbance their presence had created. This pristine cave wasn't just a scientific wonder, but a hunting ground. Terror seized Anya as she realized the implications of the bull shark attack. Their sturdy submersible might withstand a single strike, but a relentless, coordinated assault was another matter. These predators were known for their aggression and persistence. They wouldn't give up until they claimed their prize. Kenji's face, set in grim determination, flicked through a series of emergency protocols. Their oxygen was alarmingly low. They'd planned for hours of exploration, not a siege within the caves. Thomas swore under his breath, his shark expertise proving useless behind the submersible's metal shell. Every sonar ping revealed more sharks joining the swarm outside, a tightening circle of predators. They had to do something, anything. Anya's mind raced, desperately trying to find a solution. Suddenly, she remembered the bioluminescent fish they'd observed earlier. Could those flickers of light be used as a distraction? She grabbed the microphone, outlining a risky plan. Switching off the submersible's external lights, they navigated with minimal instrument illumination, relying on memory and sonar to guide them deeper into the cave system. The sharks, confused by the sudden darkness, dispersed somewhat. Then, Kenji activated a release mechanism, flooding the surrounding area with the bioluminescent plankton they'd collected earlier. The water erupted in an explosion of shimmering light. Instinctively drawn to the disturbance, the sharks swarmed toward the glowing cloud. Taking the opportunity, Kenji gunned the submersible's engines, maneuvering them through a narrow passageway the bulky sharks couldn't reach. For a few precious moments they were clear, but their reprieve was short-lived. Some sharks, sensing the trick, returned their focus to the submersible. The attacks resumed, each impact sending tremors through the craft and draining its dwindling power. Anya calculated their oxygen reserves, the numbers flashing like a death sentence in her mind. Just when despair seemed inevitable, the sonar picked up a faint signal. Another passageway, too narrow for the sharks, snaked upwards. Their only hope was to bet on it being a shortcut back to the open ocean. Yet there was no guarantee the passage wasn't a dead end, trapping them even further with no chance of escape. It was a desperate gamble, but they had no choice, with death snapping at their heels. Kenji piloted the submersible upwards, its metal hull scraping against ancient rock. Anya held her breath, every creak and groan amplified by the unbearable tension. Then, a glimmer of light. The passage opened into a vast, shallow cavern. Frantically, Kenji maneuvered them towards the opening. Just as the first bull shark managed to squeeze through, they burst into the open water. They surfaced amidst a storm, the rain a welcome contrast to the claustrophobic nightmare below. A Coast Guard vessel, alerted to their emergency beacon, was just minutes away. As they were hauled on board, Anya looked back at the churning waters, the entrance to the underwater caves barely more than a ripple in the endless sea. Back on dry land, the ordeal felt surreal. News of their miraculous survival made headlines, but the near-death experience had left its mark. Thomas was haunted by the knowledge that bull sharks, usually solitary hunters, had shown signs of pack-like behavior during the attack. It hinted at intelligence far more disturbing than random animal aggression. Anya grappled with the guilt of venturing into the unknown, of disturbing an ecosystem humans were never meant to enter. Ever the stoic, Kenji hid his trauma behind a meticulous analysis of every data point, determined to build a better, safer submersible for the future. The ocean depths still held their secrets, but their allure was forever tainted with shadows. For the survivors, the allure of discovery now came with a heavy dose of respect and just a touch of fear for the raw, unpredictable power of the natural world. The age of social media, where likes and views reign supreme, some will go to any lengths to capture the perfect shot. Among them was Joan Mitchell, a thrill-seeking influencer with a penchant for pushing the boundaries of adventure. With her camera in hand and her sights set on fame and fortune, she can plan audacious stunts just to capture the attention of her followers. That's what she did when she made an illegal dive into a restricted area known for its shark activity. Gathering a group of like-minded adventurers, Joan embarked on her quest for the ultimate thrill. With promises of fame and fortune swirling in their heads, they eagerly followed her lead, their hearts pounding with anticipation as they ventured into the unknown depths of the ocean. As they descended into the waters, the ethereal beauty of the underwater world unfolded before them, captivating their senses with its otherworldly allure. Despite the inherent dangers lurking below, Joan and her companions reveled in the exhilaration of their surroundings, their adrenaline-fueled excitement propelling them forward in search of the perfect shot. With each passing moment, they captured the essence of their adventure, filming themselves as they swam amongst the vibrant coral reefs and darting schools of fish. Joan, in particular, took center stage, her charisma and fearlessness shining through as she backstroked gracefully through the water, her camera capturing every moment of her daring escapade. But their idyllic underwater expedition took a terrifying turn when Taylor, one of Joan's companions, suddenly shouted a warning. With a sinking feeling in her stomach, Joan turned to see what had prompted Taylor's alarm, only to face a scene straight out of a nightmare, a shark-feeding frenzy in full swing. However, Joan's determination was unwavering as she edged closer to the feeding frenzy. Despite the frantic warnings from her crewmates, their voices, tinged with urgency, echoed in her ears, but she remained resolute, driven by an insatiable curiosity to witness the spectacle up close. As she inched closer, the atmosphere crackled with tension, her companions' panic escalating with each passing moment. Their cameras rolled, capturing the impending danger looming ever closer. Despite their distance, the fear was palpable, their hearts pounding in sync with the rhythm of the ocean waves. Recognizing the imminent peril, Taylor tried to intervene, knowing time was of the essence. But Joan pressed on, seemingly oblivious to the danger that surrounded her. Just as Taylor prepared to call out a final warning, disaster struck with swift and savage force. A sudden surge and Joan's piercing yell pierced the air as one of the sharks lunged, sinking its teeth into her flesh. The struggle was frantic, a desperate battle for survival as Joan fought to break free from the jaws of death. With the rest of the crew rushing to her aid, their shouts mingled with the crashing waves as they fought to pry her from the shark's grip. With a collective effort, they managed to wrench Joan free, leaving her body limp and bloodied as they hauled her back toward the safety of the boat. They counted every second as they raced against time, knowing Joan's blood could attract even more predators. But amidst the chaos and the pain, Joan's lips curled into a serene smile, and her eyes were alight with an unexpected sense of contentment. When her companions questioned her about the source of her inexplicable joy, she simply gestured towards the camera, a glimmer of pride shining through the haze of agony. For Joan, the harrowing ordeal had not been in vain. Her unwavering determination had captured the raw essence of survival, immortalizing the moment for the world to witness. After being swiftly transported to the hospital, Joan underwent surgery to mend the deep gash left by the shark's bite. The doctors worked diligently, stitching up the wound with precision and administering a course of antibiotics to prevent infection. Though the injury would likely leave a scar, Joan was fortunate that the outcome wasn't more severe. Despite the ordeal, Joan found a silver lining in the form of the photograph she managed to capture. The image froze the heart-stopping moment the shark's jaws clamped down, preserving it for eternity. With relief and pride, she shared the photo and accompanying video on her social media accounts a week later. To her astonishment, the response was overwhelming. Within hours, the post had garnered thousands of likes, shares, and comments from around the globe. Joan's story spread like wildfire, capturing the attention of media outlets far and wide. Before she knew it, Joan was thrust into the spotlight, her newfound fame eclipsing anything she had ever imagined. She appeared on talk shows, podcasts, and interviews, recounting the gripping tale of survival that had captured the imagination of millions. Turquoise waters of South Africa's Umkomaas coast sparkled under the midday sun. This hidden reef was an escape for experienced scuba diver Sarah Makubele, a place of vibrant corals and mesmerizing fish. It was June 12, 1999, and she hoped for an escape from her hectic life on shore. Sarah was a marine biologist by trade, working tirelessly to understand and protect South Africa's diverse marine life. Sharks held a particular fascination for her. Growing up in a landlocked village, the ocean had always felt like a dream. Now she studied those creatures most feared by humankind. Great whites in particular were a paradox, majestic hunters, yet vulnerable to overfishing and habitat destruction. Sarah's research was vital, yet funding was scarce. She often was torn between fieldwork and the endless grant applications that kept her work afloat. Today was meant to be different. An anonymous donation had sponsored this expedition, a rare chance to focus solely on observation. Her dive buddy, Thomas, was a seasoned underwater photographer tasked with capturing the elusive beauty of this reef. He was also her partner, the one constant in her whirlwind life. Their shared passion for the ocean deepened their bond, a precious anchor in a chaotic world. Beneath the waves, an entirely different world unfolded. Sarah's cares seemed to dissolve in the blue, her mind settling into a rhythm dictated by the gentle sway of the sea. Sunlight danced on schools of silverfish, their movement like a hypnotic ballet. Thomas signaled nearby, his camera poised. It felt like a charmed day. Unbeknownst to them, another presence lurked in the deeper waters. A great white shark, nearly 5 meters long, had been cruising this territory for days. Food was plentiful, yet a gnawing hunger persisted, a primal drive honed by millions of years of evolution. These waters were its hunting ground, and with an apex predator's instinct, it sensed opportunity in the distance. Sarah's research mind noted the sudden shift in the reef's behavior. The once dazzling fish vanished like a flicked switch, leaving an ominous void. Years of experience told her something was wrong. Thomas focused on his camera, but he had yet to notice the change. Her pulse quickened as a vast shadow appeared from the blue haze. The great white creature sculpted for power was already in attack mode. Misidentifying the diver's silhouettes as prey and driven by overwhelming instinct, it lunged. Time seemed to shatter the moment the shark struck. Sarah had seconds to process the sight of those massive jaws, a yawning maw of razor-sharp teeth. Her survival instincts kicked in, but there was nowhere to run or hide on the open sea floor. The force of the impact was staggering. The shark slammed into Sarah, seizing her torso with a brutal twist. Thomas, his focus finally ripped from the camera, watched in horror as the water around Sarah erupted in a violent crimson cloud. His own body reacted instinctively. With a desperate surge, he swam towards her, a futile attempt at intervention against the primordial force thrashing just meters away. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the attack ceased. Disoriented and tasting blood, the great white released its mangled prey and disappeared back into the depths. Thomas reached Sarah's side, his own body thrumming with adrenaline. What remained of her was barely recognizable. Yet, miraculously, he detected a faint pulse. With the strength of desperation, fueled by the impossible hope that she might still cling to life, he pulled her toward the surface. Breaking through the waterline, Thomas screamed for help, his cries echoing across the lonely ocean. His vision blurred with a mix of tears and seawater. This idyllic reef was now stained with the violent evidence of their ordeal. A fishing vessel, thankfully within sight, responded to Thomas's frantic signals. Rough hands pulled them on board, the crew reacting with shock and grim pragmatism. They'd seen this kind of carnage before. Someone radioed ahead for emergency assistance while others attempted to stabilize Sarah's horrific injuries. There was little they could do but offer crude first aid and wait for the agonizingly slow journey back to shore. Clutching what remained of Sarah, Thomas could only pray for a miracle. Back on land, chaos awaited. Paramedics swarmed the dock, their faces grim as they assessed the extent of Sarah's wounds. She was alive, but barely. The race to the hospital became a blur of sirens and flashing lights. Inside its sterile walls, teams of doctors fought to salvage what they could. But the damage was too severe. The news of Sarah's death rippled through the tight-knit marine biology community and across South Africa. There was heartbreak, outrage, and fear. Sharks, already demonized, became the focus of renewed calls for culling and increased beach safety measures. For Thomas, the world had imploded. His Sarah, vibrant and passionate, was gone. In the aftermath, he was at the center of a media frenzy he didn't want. He gave statements, faced well-meaning but intrusive questions, and endured the public's insatiable appetite for details of the tragedy. Yet, all of it felt disconnected, a cruel performance that held no meaning amidst the gaping chasm of his grief. It was a warm, humid night in late August 2008, when a group of 6 thrill-seekers decided to embark on a nighttime excursion through the murky swamps of Louisiana. The winding waterways of the Atchafalaya Basin, one of the last true wildernesses in the United States, beckoned them with the promise of excitement and adventure. The group consisted of 3 couples in their late 20s and early 30s, Scott and Emily Davis, Kyle and Jenna Thompson, and Brad and Samantha Mitchell. They were all adrenaline junkies, always on the hunt for the next heart-pounding experience to satiate their appetite for fear and risk. As they loaded their jet skis onto the trailers hitched to their trucks, excitement crackled in the air. Scott, the self-appointed ringleader of the group, couldn't contain his grin as he laid out the plan for the night. He informed his friends that they would be navigating deep into the maze-like bayou, far from the beaten path and the safety of civilization. Kyle and Brad exchanged nervous glances, but their girlfriends, Jenna and Samantha, were practically buzzing with anticipation at the prospect of something so deliciously dangerous. The Atchafalaya Basin, nestled in the heart of Louisiana's Acadiana region, was a true natural marvel. Stretching over nearly 1 million acres, it was the largest wetland and swamp area in the United States. A vast expanse of cypress tupelo forests, marshes, and winding waterways, teeming with an incredible diversity of plant and animal life. Unbeknownst to the thrill-seeking group, their nighttime excursion coincided with recent heavy rainstorms and flooding events that had inundated the basin. The swollen waters had displaced countless creatures from their natural habitats, including one particularly fearsome predator, a massive bull shark that had made its way upriver from the Gulf of Mexico. As darkness fell, the group launched their jet skis into the inky black waters of the bayou, the powerful engines shattering the stillness of the swamp. Scott took the lead, his jet ski's headlight cutting a narrow path through the gloom as they ventured deeper and deeper into the labyrinth of waterways. They raced through the narrow channels, dodging low-hanging branches and startling flocks of herons into frantic flight. The adrenaline coursed through their veins, fueling their reckless abandon as they executed daring turns and jumps, whooping and hollering into the night. Little did they know their antics had not gone unnoticed by the apex predator lurking just below the surface. The bull shark, an assertive and aggressive species known for its ability to traverse both saltwater and freshwater environments, was drawn by the vibrations of the jet ski's engines. Its cold, black eyes locked onto the lead vessel, tracking Scott's movements with lethal precision. Deeper and deeper into the bayou they plunged, the cypress trees closing around them like sentries guarding the swamp's ancient secrets. The air was thick and oppressive, heavy with the sense of stagnant water and decaying vegetation. Then, disaster struck as they rounded a sharp bend in the waterway. With a powerful surge, the bull shark launched itself from the murky depths, its enormous jaws agape and its sights set squarely on Scott's jet ski. Time seemed to slow as the massive predator collided with the vessel, its mighty jaws clamping down on the hull with bone-crushing force. The impact was catastrophic, sending Scott tumbling from the jet ski and into the black water. His friends watched in horror as the shark thrashed violently, tearing the jet ski with immense strength. The once powerful machine was reduced to a mangled mess of twisted metal and shredded fiberglass in seconds. Scott surfaced, his face a mask of sheer terror as he desperately tried to distance himself from the raging shark. The others, paralyzed by shock and fear, could only watch helplessly as the bull shark turned its sights on Scott, its cold, dead eyes locking onto its prey. The shark closed the distance with frightening speed, its powerful tail propelling it quickly through the water. Just as it seemed all hope was lost, Kyle sprang into action. He gunned his jet ski's engine, cutting a wide arc through the water and positioning himself between Scott and the oncoming predator. The shark, momentarily confused by this new threat, veered off course, giving Scott a precious few seconds to escape. Kyle shouted at Scott to swim and get to the shore. Scott began kicking furiously without hesitation, his powerful strokes propelling him toward the nearest bank. Behind him, he could hear the shark's jaws snapping shut, missing Kyle's jet ski by mere inches. The others quickly followed suit, abandoning their jet skis and striking out for the relative safety of solid ground. The shark's predatory instincts in full force seemed torn between pursuing its original target and dealing with these new fleeing prey. With a sudden surge that sent ripples through the water, the massive predator decided to hunt them all. What followed was a nightmarish game of cat and mouse, with the group desperately trying to evade the relentless shark. They navigated a labyrinth of shallow waterways and tangled cypress roots, each turning a frantic bid for survival against the formidable hunter. They scrambled onto muddy banks and half-submerged logs, their hearts pounding in their ears as the shark's fin cut through the inky water only yards away. Every splash, every ripple in the surface sent a fresh wave of terror coursing through their veins. At one point, Emily slipped and fell back into the water with a terrified shriek. Scott, fueled by sheer adrenaline and love for his wife, didn't hesitate. He plunged back into the murky depths and hauled her to safety, narrowly avoiding the shark's gaping maw. They pressed on, stumbling through the darkness and clawing through the thick underbrush, driven by the primal will to survive. Samantha twisted her ankle badly, forcing Brad to support her as they fled. Kyle and Jenna took the lead, desperately searching for any sign of human habitation or a way out of this watery nightmare. Just when it seemed their strength was about to give out, they spotted a flickering light in the distance, a campfire burning on the banks of a more expansive waterway. With renewed vigor, they pushed forward, their sodden clothes weighing them down, but their spirits buoyed by the promise of rescue. As they stumbled into the small clearing, they were greeted by a group of startled campers, a family of 4 who had been peacefully enjoying a night in the swamp before the bloodied, terrified group burst onto the scene. Kyle conveyed the dire situation through ragged gasps. A massive shark was hunting them in the bayou. At first, the campers thought it was some sort of prank or twisted joke. But when the unmistakable shape of the bull shark's fin broke the surface of the water nearby, the cold realization set in. The father, a burly man named Frank, sprang into action. He quickly ushered his family into their sturdy aluminum boat, gesturing for the exhausted group to follow. With shaking hands, they piled in, their bodies trembling from the adrenaline and chill of the night air. As Frank fired up the outboard motor and began navigating them back toward the main waterway, the shark seemed to sense its prey escaping. With a burst of speed, it closed the distance, its vast jaws snapping and thrashing through the water. Frank pushed the small boat to its limits, the engine whining in protest as he tried to outrun the determined predator. But the shark was relentless, slowly gaining ground with each mighty sweep of its tail. In a last, desperate act, Scott grabbed the only weapon at hand, a small hatchet that Frank kept in the boat for chopping firewood. With a guttural yell, he flung the hatchet towards the oncoming shark, the blade spinning end over end through the air. By sheer chance or divine intervention, the hatchet found its mark, burying itself in the shark's nose mere inches from its beady black eyes. The massive beast let out a pained bellow, thrashing and rolling in the water as it tried to dislodge the offending blade. As brief as it was, the diversion provided the opening Frank needed. He opened the throttle and the little boat surged forward, rapidly pulling away from the injured, maddened shark. They didn't stop until they had reached the main channel of the bayou, putting as much distance as possible between themselves and the swamp that had nearly become their watery grave. The total weight of their harrowing ordeal settled in as the adrenaline finally wore off. Shaken and exhausted, they returned to the launch point, collapsing on the muddy bank while waiting for the local authorities to arrive. Police and wildlife officials soon swarmed the area, their radios crackling with concern over reports of a bull shark freely roaming the flooded waterways. One by one, the group recounted their terrifying encounter with the apex predator, wild tales of jet skis being torn apart, and a violent chase through the swamplands. At first, the officials were skeptical, dismissing it as an adrenaline-fueled exaggeration. But the haunted look in their eyes and the tattered remains of the mangled jet ski told a different story. In the following days and weeks, a massive search and capture operation was launched to locate and remove the rogue shark before it could claim any more victims. The waterways were temporarily closed to all recreational activity, as teams of wildlife experts meticulously combed the maze-like bayous. Eventually, nearly 2 months after that fateful night, the bull shark was located and dispatched by a harpoon team. The massive creature, over 12 feet long and weighing nearly 1,000 pounds, was an ancient beast, covered in scars and bearing horrific injuries from its altercation with the jet skiers. For the 6 friends who had stared death in the face that night, the experience was seared into their memories forever. What had started as a reckless quest for thrills had turned into a primal fight for survival against one of nature's most fearsome predators. In the aftermath, they emerged with a profound respect for the unbridled power of the wilderness and the fragile line between life and death when one is ill-prepared to face it. Their adrenaline-seeking days were behind them, replaced with a newfound appreciation for nature's delicate balance. As for the bayous of Louisiana, the dark waters once again ran still and inscrutable. Ancient secrets kept hushed until the next unfortunate soul dared to upset the murky depths. This is a reminder that in the eternal dance between predator and prey, even the hunters can quickly become the hunted when the primal rhythm goes awry. It was the summer of 2003. and the idyllic waters of the Bahamas beckoned like a siren's call to young lovers seeking an escape from the mundane. Among those drawn to its shores were Jacob Thompson and Emily Wilkins, a couple who had set out to celebrate their first anniversary with a romantic sunset jet ski ride along the island's breathtaking coastline. As the sun lay lower on the horizon, painting the sky in a vibrant tapestry of reds and oranges, Jacob and Emily couldn't help but feel a sense of unbridled joy wash over them. They had left the stresses of everyday life behind, if only for a fleeting moment, to bask in the natural splendor surrounding them. Weaving through the crystal-clear waters, the couple marveled at the kaleidoscope of marine life that flitted beneath the surface. Schools of vibrantly colored fish, graceful stingrays gliding through the depths, and even the occasional sea turtle lazily making its way through the tranquil paradise. Little did Jacob and Emily know, however, that their idyllic moment was about to be shattered by an ancient predator that had called these waters home long before humans ever dared to tread upon them. For lurking just beneath the surface, drawn by the vibrations of their jet ski, was a massive great white shark, a living embodiment of primal power and an apex hunter that ruled the depths with an iron jaw. The first sign of danger came in the form of a subtle ripple on the surface, barely perceptible amidst the gentle lapping of the waves. But Jacob, a seasoned waterman, sensed something wasn't quite right. He tightened his grip on the jet ski's handlebars, eyes scanning the water for any telltale signs of what might lie beneath. In a single heart-stopping moment, the great white erupted from the depths, its massive jaws agape and its rows of serrated teeth glistening in the fading sunlight. With a mighty lunge, the shark slammed into the jet ski, its sheer force shattering the fiberglass hull and sending Jacob and Emily tumbling into the water. As they resurfaced, gasping for air, the couple found themselves face to face with their worst nightmare. The great white, its cold, soulless eyes fixed upon them with an unwavering hunger. The jet ski, now reduced to a mangled wreck, offered no sanctuary as the shark circled its prey, its powerful tail cutting through the water like a scythe. At that moment, Jacob and Emily knew that their survival hinged on their ability to stay calm and think clearly. They clung to each other, their bodies trembling with fear and adrenaline, as they watched the predator's every move. Time seemed to slow to a crawl, each passing second feeling like an eternity. The couple's minds raced, desperately searching for a way to escape the jaws of the great white. They knew that sudden movements could trigger the shark's hunting instincts, so they treaded water cautiously, their eyes never leaving the circling predator. As the minutes ticked by, the couple's determination began to waver, their muscles aching from the exertion of staying afloat. But just as they thought all hope was lost, they spotted a glimmer of salvation in the distance. A small, secluded cove that promised sanctuary from the shark's relentless pursuit. With a renewed sense of purpose, Jacob and Emily began to swim towards the cove, their movements slow and deliberate, their eyes ever vigilant for any sign of the great white's attack. Each stroke felt like a battle against the riptide of fear that threatened to pull them under. But their love for each other, their unbreakable bond, kept them afloat. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, they reached the safety of the cove, their bodies battered and exhausted, but their spirits intact. As they collapsed onto the sandy shore, they clung to each other, tears of relief and gratitude streaming down their faces. In the aftermath of their harrowing ordeal, Jacob and Emily knew their lives had been forever changed. They had stared into the abyss of nature's most primal forces and emerged victorious, their love and determination acting as a beacon that guided them through the darkest moments. From that day, their bond was forged in the crucible of adversity, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of love to conquer even the most nightmarish of circumstances. As they looked out over the now tranquil waters of the Bahamas, they couldn't help but feel a newfound respect for the majesty and the fury of the ocean. A force that had humbled them, yet ultimately failed to break their indomitable spirits. It was the summer of 2009, and the crystal-clear waters of the Hawaiian archipelago beckoned to thrill-seekers from around the globe. Among them was a group of adventurers, Tyler Davis, Stella Nguyen, Alex Thompson, and Jenna Roberts, led by seasoned tour guide Kai Kealoha, who had embarked on an adrenaline-fueled jet ski excursion through the remote islands. As they navigated the pristine waters, weaving between towering sea stacks and cascading waterfalls, the group couldn't help but marvel at the raw beauty surrounding them. Kai, a native Hawaiian with a deep respect for the ocean, regaled them with tales of the island's rich history and the importance of preserving their natural wonders. Little did they know, however, that they were about to become unwitting participants in a confrontation with one of nature's most formidable predators. This remarkable white shark had been drawn to the area by the commotion of their high-speed jet skis. The first sign of trouble came in a massive swell, a towering wall of water that seemed to rise from the depths like a liquid behemoth. Kai, his instincts honed by years of experience, immediately recognized the danger and signaled for the group to brace themselves. As the jet skis crested the wave's peak, the riders were treated to a breathtaking view, a panoramic expanse of azure blue stretching as far as the eye could see. But their moment of awe was short-lived, for it was at that precise moment that the great white chose to strike. With a thunderous crash, the shark erupted from the depths, its massive jaws agape and its powerful tail slicing through the water like a scythe. In a single devastating blow, Tyler and Stella's jet ski was sent careening through the air, flinging them violently into the churning sea. The group watched in horror as the great white turned its attention towards the struggling pair, its predatory instincts fully awakened. Kai, acting with lightning reflexes, maneuvered his jet ski between the shark and its intended prey, using the powerful engine to create a wall of turbulent water. The tactic worked momentarily as the shark retreated into the depths, seemingly confused by the commotion. But the respite was short-lived, for the great white shark soon resurfaced, its hunger undeterred. What followed was a harrowing ordeal, as the group was caught in a desperate battle against the elements and the relentless pursuit of the apex predator. With Tyler and Stella clinging to the remains of the mangled jet ski, the others, Alex, Jenna, and Kai, formed a protective perimeter, their engines roaring as they fought to keep the shark at bay. Time seemed to slow to a crawl, each passing minute an eternity, as the group struggled to stay afloat and make their way back toward the safety of the shoreline. The shark, its primal instincts honed by millions of years of evolution, refused to relent, circling like a deadly specter, waiting for the slightest opening. The group finally caught a glimpse of land as the sun began to go below the horizon, painting the sky in a kaleidoscope of fiery hues. This small, secluded cove promised sanctuary from the predator's grasp. With a final burst of adrenaline-fueled determination, they pushed their jet skis to the limit, the engines screaming in protest as they raced toward the safety of the shore. Ultimately, the sheer force of their collective will carried them through, as they dragged themselves onto the sandy beach, battered and exhausted, but alive. As the group gathered around a small fire, sharing in the camaraderie of survivors, they couldn't help but feel a newfound respect for the power and majesty of the ocean, a force that had humbled them yet ultimately failed to break their indomitable spirits. From that day forward, their bond was forged in the crucible of adversity, a shared experience that would forever etch itself into their memories, a reminder that even in the face of nature's most formidable challenges, the human spirit could prevail. It was 2005, and a team of researchers from the Global Ocean Conservation Initiative had set out to investigate reports of illegal fishing activity in the remote waters surrounding Malden Island, a speck of land in the vast expanse of the South Pacific. Led by marine biologist Dr. Emma Westbrook, the team's mission was to gather evidence and raise awareness about the devastating impact of these activities on the region's delicate ecosystems. As their research vessel, the Nautilus, approached the island's crystal-clear waters, the team prepared to deploy their jet skis, an efficient way to survey the surrounding area. Dr. Westbrook briefed her colleagues, reminding them of the island's rich history and the importance of preserving its natural wonders. According to local legends, the island was home to a massive great white shark, revered by the indigenous people as the guardian of the deep. Believed to be an ancient protector of the island's waters, the shark's mere presence had deterred many from venturing too close to the shoreline. Dismissing the tales as mere folklore, the team donned their life jackets and launched their jet skis. the powerful engines shattering the tranquil silence of the island's pristine coastline. They fanned out in pairs, meticulously scanning the waters for signs of illegal fishing activities during these sweeps. Dr. Westbrook and her colleague, marine biologist Alex Nguyen, encountered a sight that would forever haunt their memories. A massive shadow glided beneath the waves, its size dwarfing their jet skis. Before they could react, the beast erupted from the depths, its gaping maw lined with serrated teeth. In a single, terrifying moment, it slammed into Alex's jet ski, the force of the impact sending him tumbling into the water. Dr. Westbrook watched in horror as the great white's powerful jaws clamped down on the jet ski, its immense weight dragging the mangled vessel beneath the waves. The water churned with frenzied activity as the shark thrashed about, its ancient instincts unleashed. Realizing her teammates' grave danger, Dr. Westbrook sprang into action, radioing for immediate assistance from the research vessel. The rest of the team alerted to the crisis and quickly converged on the scene, their jet skis cutting through the water urgently. As they drew closer, the accurate scale of the threat became apparent. The Great White was no mere legend. It was a living embodiment of primal power, a behemoth that seemed to defy the laws of nature itself. The team knew they had to act fast, with Alex treading water just meters from the circling predator. They formed a protective perimeter around their stranded comrade, using their jet skis to create a barrier between him and the shark's deadly jaws. The minutes ticked by like hours, each passing moment increasing the risk of another attack. The team's nerves were frayed, their eyes darting back and forth, searching for any sign of the shark's next move. Just when it seemed their efforts were in vain, the thunderous roar of the research vessel's engines echoed across the waters. A rescue boat was rapidly approaching, its crew armed with harpoons and tranquilizer guns, ready to subdue the legendary predator if necessary. As the boat drew nearer, the Great White seemed to sense the shift in the balance of power. With a final defiant thrash of its powerful tail, it disappeared into the depths, leaving a trail of churned-up water in its wake. In the aftermath, the team gathered on the deck of the Nautilus, their faces etched with a mixture of relief and awe. They had come face to face with a creature that embodies nature's raw, untamed power, a humbling reminder of the fragility of human existence in the face of such primal forces. As the research vessel weighed anchor and set sail for safer waters, the team couldn't help but feel a newfound respect for the legends surrounding the Guardian of the Deep. In that brief, terrifying encounter, they had witnessed firsthand the majesty and the fury of a creature that had ruled these waters long before humans ever dared to tread upon them. It was 2014, and the sun-drenched shores of Miami Beach hosted an event that promised to push the boundaries of human endurance and adrenaline. A high-stakes jet ski race, attracting daredevils from across the globe, was set to unfold along the iconic coastline, with the roar of engines and the spray of saltwater serving as the backdrop for a battle of wills and raw speed. Among the competitors was a motley crew of thrill-seekers, each with their own unique story and reasons for chasing the thrill of the chase. There was Zane Blackwell, a former Navy SEAL turned extreme sports enthusiast, whose calm demeanor belied a heart that beat for the rush of the unknown. Alongside him was Ava Santiago, a fearless Brazilian surfer whose skills on the waves had earned her a reputation as a force to be reckoned with. Then there was Liam O'Connor, an Irish-born adrenaline junkie whose love for jet skis bordered on obsession, and Mia Nguyen, a Vietnamese-American prodigy whose natural talent behind the handlebars had already earned her a legion of fans. As the sun reached its zenith, the riders gathered on the beach, their jet skis lined up like sleek, mighty steeds ready to be unleashed upon the water. The air was thick with anticipation, the scent of gasoline and sunscreen mingling in a heady brew that only heightened the tension. With a thunderous roar, the race began, and the jet skis tore across the water, kicking up plumes of spray in their wake. The riders weaved and dodged, each jockeying for position as they navigated the treacherous waters, their bodies straining against the forces of nature that threatened to unseat them at any moment. But little did they know that a far more primal threat lurked beneath the surface, a great white shark, drawn to the area by the commotion and the vibrations of the powerful jet skis. This ancient predator had ruled these waters long before humans ever dared to tread upon them, and it was not about to relinquish its domain so easily. As the race reached its fever pitch, with Zane Blackwell and Ava Santiago battling for the lead, the first sign of danger came in the form of a subtle ripple on the surface, barely perceptible amidst the chaos of the race, but enough to set Zane's finely tuned instincts on edge. In a single, heart-stopping moment, the great white exploded from the depths, its massive jaws agape and its rows of serrated teeth glistening in the midday sun. With a mighty lunge, the shark slammed into Zane's jet ski, sending him hurtling through the air before crashing into the unforgiving waters. The other riders watched in horror as the scene unfolded, their initial shock quickly giving way to a primal fear gripping them to their cores. Zane resurfaced, gasping for air, only to come face to face with the cold, soulless eyes of the great white, a living embodiment of nature's most terrifying predator. At that moment, time seemed to slow to a crawl as Zane's mind raced, desperately searching for a way to escape the shark's jaws. He knew that sudden movements could trigger the predator's hunting instincts, so he treaded water cautiously, his eyes never leaving the circling beast. As the minutes ticked by, the other riders looked on helplessly, their jet skis seeming like mere toys in the face of the ocean's raw power. But just as they thought all hope was lost, they spotted a glimmer of salvation in the distance, a small, secluded cove that promised sanctuary from the shark's relentless pursuit. With renewed determination, the riders began to make their way toward the cove, their engines roaring as they cut through the water recklessly. Zane, meanwhile, continued his desperate struggle, his muscles burning with the exertion of staying afloat and evading the shark's deadly strikes. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Zane reached the safety of the cove, his body battered and his spirit pushed to the brink. As he dragged himself onto the sandy shore, the other riders gathered around him, their faces etched with relief and awe. In the aftermath of their harrowing ordeal, the group found themselves forever changed, their bond forged in the crucible of adversity. Zane, in particular, knew that he had stared into the abyss of nature's most primal forces and emerged victorious, his will to survive acting as a beacon that guided him through the darkest moments. Since then, the group carried with them newfound respect for the majesty and the fury of the ocean, a force that had humbled them yet ultimately failed to break their indomitable spirits. As they looked out over the now tranquil waters of Miami Beach, they couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for having been given a second chance at life, a reminder that even in the face of death, the human spirit could prevail. In the azure waters off the coast of Australia, a lone jet skier ventured into the open ocean, seeking adventure and adrenaline. It was a sunny afternoon in late November 2013 when Mark Jamieson decided to take his brand new jet ski out for a solitary spin off the shores of Perth. The adrenaline junkie had been eagerly anticipating this day for weeks, practically vibrating with excitement to test the limits of the powerful machine's capabilities on the open waters. Perth, the sun-drenched capital of Western Australia, was renowned for its pristine beaches and world-class surf breaks. The city's coastline stretched for miles, with crystal-clear waters that beckoned adventure seekers from around the globe. For Mark, who had recently turned 25, it was the perfect playground to indulge his thirst for thrills. As he secured the jet ski onto the trailer and hitched to his truck, Mark couldn't help but feel a buzz of anticipation. This wasn't his first rodeo for extreme water sports. He had been wakeboarding and skateboarding since his teens. But there was something about the raw, unbridled power of the jet ski that filled him with a childlike giddiness. The drive to Cottesloe Beach, a popular spot for water sports enthusiasts, felt like an eternity. Mark's fingers drummed impatiently against the steering wheel as he navigated the familiar streets. When he pulled into the buzzing parking lot, the sun was high overhead, casting a warm glow over the scene of families setting up for beach days and surfers waxing their boards. Mark wasted no time in unloading and prepping his jet ski. With a few deft motions, the vessel was freed from its trailer restraints and ready to be lowered into the welcoming embrace of the gentle surf. The powerful engine roared to life, sending a spray of salt water into the air and eliciting a few curious glances from nearby beachgoers. Without hesitation, Mark hopped aboard, his heart thundering with exhilaration. A wide grin split his tanned face as he twisted the throttle, and the jet ski surged forward, cutting through the waves with remarkable ease. He let out a whoop of pure joy, the salty air whipping against his face as he carved through the water. Mark stayed close to shore for a few minutes, getting a feel for the jet ski's responsiveness and power as he navigated the crowded nearshore waters teeming with swimmers and fellow thrill-seekers. But it wasn't long before the open ocean started calling to him, that vast, glittering expanse of blue that promised unlimited freedom and adventure. Unbeknownst to Mark, his antics had not gone unnoticed by a different kind of predator, lurking beneath the waves. A massive great white shark, drawn by the jet ski's engine vibrations, began tracking his movements with a hunter's precision. Its cold, black eyes locked onto the solitary human, identifying him as potential prey. But Mark was oblivious to the danger, lost in the euphoria of speed and adrenaline. With a mischievous grin, he pointed the jet ski's nose toward the open ocean and gunned the engine. The powerful vessel leaped forward, rapidly distancing Mark and the shoreline. Perth's beaches and high-rise buildings soon became mere specks on the horizon as he ventured farther and farther out to sea, chasing the limitless azure expanse. Mark felt utterly free, with water surrounding him in every direction. He executed daring maneuvers, sharp turns, and launched the jet ski into the air, only to come crashing back down onto the water's surface with a thunderous splash that sent spray flying. It was during one of these airborne stunts that disaster struck. As the jet ski reached the apex of its arc, the unmistakable shape of the great white shark breached the surface, its massive jaws agape and its cold black eyes fixated on Mark. Time seemed to slow as the shark, moving with a sudden burst of speed, collided with the jet ski in midair, its mighty jaws clamping down on the vessel's hull with a sickening crunch. The impact was catastrophic, the force sending Mark flying off the jet ski. He hit the water with bone-jarring force. The air explosively forced from his lungs as he was briefly enveloped in a world of churning foam and darkness, his senses overwhelmed by the violent collision. When Mark finally surfaced, gulping in precious lungfuls of air, his mind was a whirl of confusion and panic. Where was the jet ski, and what the hell had just happened? It was only when his gaze fell upon the mangled wreckage rapidly sinking below the waves that the terrifying reality hit him. He was stranded miles from shore with a threat he could scarcely comprehend lurking just beneath the surface. As if on cue, the massive form of the great white shark materialized beside the sinking jet ski, its substantial dorsal fin slicing through the water with lethal grace. Mark felt his blood run cold as its pale underbelly became visible, the great predator circling him with a slow, metronomic rhythm. The shark seemed to sense his fear, its predatory instincts kicking into high gear. It turned towards Mark, using its powerful tail to propel itself forward with terrifying speed. Though he kicked furiously, frantically trying to distance himself from the rapidly approaching threat, it was no use. The shark was closing in, its cavernous maw opening wide to reveal a row of serrated teeth. In that heart-stopping moment, every muscle in Mark's body burned with the fire of sheer desperation, as a primal will to survive took over. Just as the shark returned to strike, he flung his arm out in a wild defensive swipe, catching the side of its head with a glancing blow. The strike didn't do much damage, but was enough to startle and disorient the predator for a few vital seconds. Mark didn't waste a moment. He turned and began swimming with every ounce of strength he could muster, his powerful strokes propelling him through the water as he fled from the injured, enraged beast behind him. Already he could hear the sounds of its powerful tail thrashing, churning the water into a froth as it gave chase. His heart thundered in his ears, lungs burning from the exertion of his desperate flight. Try as he might to put as much distance between himself and the shark as possible, it seemed an impossible task. Its speed and tenacity were unrelenting, but Mark refused to give in to the creeping tendrils of despair. He was young, strong, and in the prime of his life. If anyone could outswim this nightmare, it was him. He swam relentlessly, his muscles burning with exhaustion, each breath searing through his lungs as if filled with molten lead. Only when he dared to glance backward did he fully grasp the magnitude of his danger. No more than 20 yards behind, the great white shark's unmistakable dorsal fin sliced through the water. its massive jaws gaping as it readied itself to surge forward and attack. A scream tore from Mark's throat, a primal sound of anguish and sheer horror. This was it. He could feel it in his bones. After outrunning the shark for so long, his luck finally ran out. He thrashed wildly in the water, blood pounding in his ears, mind consumed by blind panic as the shark closed the distance with terrifying speed. Then, just as the nightmare creature drew within striking range, jaws agape to secure its kill, a series of ear-splitting cracks rang out across the open water. Mark flinched, instinctively covering his head with his arms as something large and heavy passed before him, creating a towering wall of white water. He could scarcely believe what he saw when he opened his eyes, blinking away the stinging salt water. There, floating only a dozen yards away, was a large fishing boat, and sprawled out on its deck were two burly crewmen, smoke still wafting from the barrels of their rifles. One of them shouted to him to hang tight, already rushing to drop a life ring and safety ladder over the side of the boat. With a burst of adrenaline fueled by sheer relief, Mark propelled himself toward the rescuers. They quickly pulled him aboard, where he arrived coughing and sputtering but alive. The crew led him into the cramped cabin and wrapped him in warm blankets. Mark recounted his harrowing ordeal with the great white shark as they bombarded him with questions. He described how it had ambushed him and pursued him relentlessly for hours, a tale of survival that left everyone in awe. The crew members listened in grim silence as Mark recounted his ordeal, their weathered faces etched with awe and concern. Once he had finished, the captain wasted no time radioing for assistance and medical evacuation. Within the hour, the distant thump of helicopter rotors could be heard cutting through the salt-tinged air. As the rescue chopper drew near, lowering a harness to winch Mark aboard, he couldn't help but steal one last glance back toward the spot where the shark had vanished beneath the waves. A full-body shudder ran through him, thinking of how close he had come to becoming that legendary predator's next meal. By sheer luck and the bravery of those crewmen, he had been given a second chance at life. As the chopper banked over the glittering ocean, Mark silently vowed that this harrowing experience would serve as a wake-up call. No longer would he take unnecessary risks just for a cheap thrill. The ocean's fury, though awe-inspiring, demanded the utmost respect and humility from those who dared to venture into its domain. He would carry the physical and emotional scars of this day for the rest of his life, as a permanent reminder. Beneath the starlit sky, the Maldivian sea shimmered with an ethereal glow. 5 tourists had ventured into this underwater dreamscape, eager to witness the famed bioluminescence themselves. It was December 5, 2001. A night dive promised the otherworldly experience only found deep beneath the waves. Leading the group was Nadia, a seasoned dive master with an infectious passion for the ocean. Having grown up on these islands, the sea was her backyard, its mysteries and rhythms woven into her very being. Tonight, excitement coursed through her veins. Bioluminescence was unpredictable. Sharing this phenomenon with newcomers was always a thrill. A young British couple, Emily and Ben, were among the tourists on their honeymoon. Their shared fascination with the natural world had drawn them to the Maldives, a wedding gift more precious than anything else on their registry. Then there was Marcus, a middle-aged German photographer hoping to capture the bioluminescence on film. His worn camera bag and waterproof flashlight hinted at a life spent chasing elusive images. And finally, Priya, an Indian marine biology student whose wide eyes betrayed her mix of awe and nerves. This was her first night dive, a thrilling and slightly terrifying step into the field she dreamed of working in one day. The day she had been spent with meticulous preparation. Nadia checked and rechecked gear, explaining the dive plan in precise detail. Emily and Ben experienced divers themselves and absorbed everything with enthusiasm. Marcus peppered Nadia with questions about the best lighting techniques for underwater photography, while Priya clung to Nadia's every word, her fingers nervously adjusting her mask. As the sun descended, casting long shadows across the white sand beach, they boarded the dive boat. Laughter mingled with nervous chatter as the small vessel chugged away from the resort's twinkling lights. They donned wetsuits out on the open water, the neoprene a warm hug against the evening chill. One by one, they strapped on weight belts and air tanks, the familiar clinking of metal a rhythmic pre-dive ritual. Finally, the moment had arrived. Standing at the boat's edge, their hearts pounding, they took that giant leap into the unknown. Bubbles fizzed around them as they descended, the last remnants of daylight filtering through the crystal clear water. With a flick of a switch, Nadia turned on her dive light. Specks of blue swirled in the beam, an electrifying display of nature's magic. The group gasped in unison, mesmerized by the underwater fireworks. They followed Nadia, more bottomless, their movements stirring more vibrant bursts of light. Emily and Ben reached out, hands brushing amidst the glittering clouds. This was a moment they'd treasure forever. They didn't know that the bioluminescence had attracted more than just wonderstruck humans. Tiger sharks, known to prowl these waters, honed in on the disturbance. Unlike reef sharks, which are often timid, tigers are curious apex predators, and their keen senses detect potential prey lurking in the darkness. A surge of panic ripped through Nadia as the truth dawned on her. Those weren't just curious sharks, they were hunting. One in particular, bolder than the rest, accelerated towards the group. Nadia reacted instinctively, shoving Priya and Marcus further behind her while she flailed her dive light in the approaching shark's direction. For a split second it seemed startled, then attacked again with renewed aggression. Instinct took over. Nadia charged the tiger head-on, a desperate attempt to scare it off. Its razor-lined mouth gaped open inches from her outstretched hand, then a solid thud. The shark veered sideways, its momentum thrown off course. Armed with his camera pole, Ben had jabbed the shark forcefully on its sensitive snout. Seeing her husband's bravery, Emily frantically signaled to the others to start their emergency ascent. They kicked furiously upwards, the bioluminescence a swirling cloud of light around them, like a shroud painting them as targets. The sharks, momentarily disoriented, circled beneath, their movements growing more agitated. One peeled off from the others and shot upwards with alarming speed. Its target was Priya, lagging slightly behind. Nadia screamed, an underwater cry muffled by her regulator. But there was no time to react. The shark lunged and Priya disappeared in a swirl of sand and dark blood. Terror turned to rage. Nadia, Ben, and Marcus reached the surface, gasping for breath. Emily, however, was nowhere to be found. Panic threatened to overwhelm them, the boat a distant speck against the vast night sea. And beneath the waves, shadows moved. Nadia forced herself back underwater, her eyes scanning desperately for any sign of Emily. Then she saw her. Emily was entangled in a discarded fishing net, the tiger shark circling with predatory intent. It lunged, and Emily thrashed helplessly against the nylon trap. With a surge of adrenaline, Nadia swam towards her friend, dive knife drawn. In the frantic fight that followed, time seemed to distort. She slashed at the shark and at the net, Emily's wide eyes mirroring her terror. Finally, with a desperate swipe, the net tore. Kicking with all their might, Nadia and Emily surfaced, dragging each other to the boat like debris after a shipwreck. Hauling themselves aboard, they collapsed on the deck, sobs mixing with the frantic explanations for the horrified boat crew. Still in a frenzy from the hunt, the tiger sharks seemed reluctant to give up their prey. They circled the boat, their fins slicing through the moonlit water. It took an agonizing hour, the crew flashing emergency strobes and making as much noise as possible, before the sharks finally disappeared into darkness. The aftermath was a numb blur. The Coast Guard arrived, their questions jarring. Marcus sat hunched over, his precious camera abandoned beside him. Ben held Emily, both shaking uncontrollably. Nadia, bruised and aching, was a shell of her former self. Guilt gnawed at her. She should have seen the signs and aborted the dive earlier. Yet she also knew the unpredictable savagery of the ocean. Sometimes nature played by its own rules, and humans were merely pawns in the struggle for survival. As dawn broke, painting the sky in streaks of soft pink, the rescue vessel chugged back into port. Priya's body was never recovered. The bioluminescence had faded, leaving behind only the harsh light of day and the unbearable reality of a dream holiday turned nightmare. For the survivors, the sea would never hold the same magic again. Haunted by the shadows in the depths, they were forever marked by the night the ocean bared its teeth. What began as a simple and unassuming rain quickly escalated into the most catastrophic event ever, hitting the beach city of Rio de Janeiro. A torrential downpour of epic proportions ravaged the city for 10 days, transforming its streets, alleys, and buildings into raging rivers. The impact was particularly devastating in the northern part of the city, where its onslaught first began. In the initial days, the rain fell slowly and steadily. Still, as the hours turned into days, its intensity grew, wreaking havoc on the city's infrastructure and bringing economic activities to a grinding halt. Water levels rose rapidly, submerging cars and flooding major thoroughfares, turning them into impassable rivers. A dozen bus lines were forced to shut down, and several metro stations were closed due to water affecting the tracks. The relentless rainfall showed no signs of abating, with some areas receiving a year's worth of rain in just 72 hours. Despite the valiant efforts of firefighters to respond to the crisis, their own lives were put at risk by the unforgiving rain. Calls for help overwhelmed their lines, with reports of missing persons flooding in, but the ongoing rain hampered rescue efforts, leaving many stranded and vulnerable. Injured individuals in desperate need of medical attention found themselves trapped in their homes as the floodwaters surged around them. Hospitals, typically places of refuge and safety, were not spared from the storm's wrath. In one of the worst affected neighborhoods, floodwaters seeped into hospital basements, affecting offices and disrupting critical services. After the catastrophic hurricane, the once vibrant urban landscape lay submerged beneath a turbulent sea. The towering buildings, once symbols of progress and prosperity, now lay in ruins, their shattered remnants barely visible beneath the dark, churning waters. For the residents who had weathered the storm, it was a scene of unimaginable devastation. A city transformed overnight into a watery graveyard of shattered dreams and broken promises. Yet, amidst the chaos and despair, a new threat emerged, a silent menace that lurked beneath the surface, biding its time. Displaced by the storm's ferocity, bull sharks ventured into the city, their predatory instincts heightened by the scent of blood and fear. For the beleaguered residents who dared to brave the treacherous waters, every journey became a gamble with their lives. Canoes and makeshift boats became the primary mode of transportation, as families navigated through the submerged streets in search of higher ground and safety. Among those who ventured into the watery depths was Maria Sanchez, a single mother of two who had lost everything in the storm. When the hurricane struck with devastating force, Maria was at work, separated from her children, who were thankfully safe at school. With a heart heavy with grief and uncertainty, Maria set out to reunite with her beloved children, determined to protect and provide for them in the face of adversity. With her two children by her side, Maria paddled through the depths, her arms aching with every stroke. Yet despite the overwhelming odds stacked against her, she refused to succumb to despair. As they navigated the treacherous waters, Maria and her children were devastated. Homes lay submerged beneath the floodwaters, their contents scattered and destroyed by the relentless force of nature. Yet amidst the wreckage, Maria witnessed moments of compassion and solidarity as neighbors banded together to support and assist those in need. With trembling hands, Maria and her children began to sift through the wreckage left after the devastating hurricane, searching for anything salvageable amidst the debris. Maria prepared to make their escape, gathering what few belongings they could salvage. But just as they were about to leave, disaster struck. The water surged forward, knocking Maria off her feet and tumbling into the depths below. As she struggled to break free, she felt a sharp pain shoot through her leg, followed by a rush of warmth as blood mingled with the water around her. With mounting dread, she realized she had fallen victim to the sharks that now circled hungrily around her, their jaws snapping with savage ferocity as they closed in for the kill. But Maria refused to give up hope. With a strength born of desperation, she fought against the current, clawing toward the surface with every ounce of her being. In a stroke of luck, her hand found purchase on a broken plank floating nearby, and she used it as a makeshift weapon to fend off her attackers. With a final desperate blow, she struck the nearest shark with all her might, causing it to retreat in pain. With her children watching in horror from the safety of a nearby pavement, Maria summoned every last ounce of strength and swam towards them, her injured leg throbbing with pain. Together, they clung to each other for support as they made their escape, the memory of their harrowing ordeal etched into their minds forever. But Maria's brush with death was not an isolated incident. In the aftermath of the hurricane, there were numerous reports of shark attacks on unsuspecting residents who found themselves trapped in the floodwaters. Some, like Maria, were lucky enough to survive with injuries, while others were not so fortunate. Their lives were tragically cut short by the relentless predators that now roam the city streets. In response to the growing crisis, authorities emerged, deploying water guides and necessary officials to address the shark-infested waters. With swift and decisive action, all sharks discovered in the city were euthanized, bringing an end to the reign of terror that had gripped the community. As the floodwaters slowly receded in the following weeks, the community was left to assess the extent of the damage and plan to prevent future incidents. Early morning light shimmered on the Pacific Ocean, turning the waves off Maui's northern coast into molten gold. 5 surfers bobbed on their boards, waiting for the perfect set. It was January 10, 2005, and the thrill of an early swell had pulled them out of bed hours ago. Among them was Kai, a Hawaiian native who'd grown up riding these waves. Surfing was his religion, the ocean his sanctuary. His days revolved around the tide charts, and nothing beat the rush of dropping into a glassy barrel. Today, he was joined by his best friend, Jake, a mainland transplant with an infectious enthusiasm for all things surf-related. Emily, Jake's girlfriend, was just a little behind in skill. Her competitive spirit pushed her to try boulder maneuvers. Rounding out the crew were 2 seasoned local surfers, Tomas and Makoa, whose deep-set eyes scanned the horizon with the quiet alertness of men intimately familiar with the sea's unpredictable moods. The morning started with laughter and friendly competition. They took turns riding the waves, whooping in appreciation of each other's skills. There was a camaraderie among surfers, a bond forged in the shared understanding of nature's power. But the ocean was a fickle beast, and its beauty could mask hidden dangers. Great white sharks weren't common in these waters, but weren't unheard of either. Attracted by warmer currents and abundant food sources, these apex predators were known to roam the vast Pacific. And today, one had found its way to this seemingly idyllic surf spot. Kai was the first to sense something was wrong. A shift in the current, a ripple of unease that washed over him with the chill of a sudden drop in temperature. He saw the other surfers fall silent, their easy banter replaced by a shared wariness. Then there it was. A massive dorsal fin slicing through the water, cutting an ominous course directly towards their little group. Their carefree morning was shattered in an instant. Kai's survival instincts, honed by years spent in the ocean, kicked in. He paddled frantically toward shore, yelling at the others to do the same. Every fiber of his being screamed that escape was their only chance. Emily and Jake followed without question, adrenaline propelling their frantic strokes. But Thomas and Makoa, perhaps out of bravado or disbelief, hesitated. It was a decision that would change everything. The great white surged forward with breathtaking speed, breaching the surface in an explosion of water. Its target was Thomas, frozen in the path of the oncoming predator. Makoa, with a desperate shout, flung himself towards his friend, shoving him out of harm's way with seconds to spare. But the shark, disoriented by the sudden change of target, wheeled back, its massive jaws finding their mark. Makoa's scream cut through the air, followed by a sickening gurgle as he was dragged underwater. The ocean churned crimson, the sight a brutal reminder of the shark's power. Tomas, still reeling from his narrow escape, thrashed towards the safety of the shore, a primal terror spurring him on. Meanwhile, Kai, Emily, and Jake had made it halfway across the treacherous stretch of open water, separating them from the beach. They paddled in unison, hearts pounding in their chests. Their boards seemed pitifully small now against the ocean's vastness, and their escape route felt impossibly long. The shark, having consumed its gruesome meal, was still hungry. It honed in on the fleeing surfers, a relentless hunter unwilling to relinquish its prey. Kai knew their only hope lay in reaching shallower water, where the shark's maneuverability would be limited. He urged the others on, his voice hoarse with fear and exertion. Then Emily made a fatal mistake. Panic overtaking her, she abandoned her steady paddling and started kicking wildly. The frantic movements drew the shark's attention like a beacon. It changed course, homing in on her with terrifying speed. Jake watched in horror as the massive shape shot up from below. In a horrifying display of raw power, the shark breached, snatching Emily from her surfboard. She vanished in a flurry of white water, her agonized scream piercing the air before it was brutally cut off. Jake was overwhelmed by a gut-wrenching mix of grief and terror, causing him to freeze. His surfboard became a lone target in the hunting grounds. Kai, however, snapped back to survival mode. With a surge of adrenaline, he paddled toward Jake, shouting at him to snap out of his daze. Reaching his friend, Kai physically propelled Jake's board towards the shore, knowing every second counted. As though disoriented by witnessing two attacks in quick succession, the shark hesitated. Yet the smell of blood and its insatiable hunger kept it circling. Kai and Jake were agonizingly close to shore, but the shark was between them and safety. In a desperate gamble, Kai jumped off his board, sacrificing himself as a distraction. He kicked wildly, creating as much chaos as possible, hoping to draw the predator's attention. It worked. The shark veered towards Kai, its massive form a monstrous silhouette in the churning water. Miraculously, Kai managed to dive under just before the gigantic jaws snapped shut. Feeling the turbulence and blinded by its fury, the shark thrashed. It was enough. Fueled by the terror of losing another friend, Jake reached the shallows. He scrambled onto the sand, collapsing with a mixture of sobs and relieved gasps for air. Kai was still caught in the deadly game out in the deeper water. The shark charged again, and again he dodged. He knew he couldn't outlast the predator forever. His muscles burned, and his lungs screamed for oxygen. Just when all hope seemed lost, a powerful wave broke over them, churning and disoriented the shark long enough for Kai to catch the receding current and body surf his way frantically to shore. He stumbled onto the beach, seconds ahead of the frustrated shark, and crumpled beside Jake. The two men huddled together, shaking uncontrollably as they stared in numb horror at the ocean. The playful waves that had beckoned them that morning now seemed menacing, forever tainted by the bloodshed they had witnessed. With the arrival of rescue boats, the reality of their ordeal sank in. They had survived, but at a terrible cost. From that day on, the ocean would hold a different meaning for them, its power tinged with a respect born of profound fear. For they had looked into the abyss, into the cold eyes of a predator, and they knew the fragility of human life in the face of nature's untamed might. One fateful evening, the popular restaurant overlooking the pristine beaches of the Maldives welcomed a spectacular visitor, Dennis and Catherine, a Canadian couple embarking on their dream honeymoon. After 2 blissful years together, their love deepened with each passing day, culminating in an elaborate wedding ceremony in one of Canada's grandest churches. Their honeymoon plans had been set in motion months before the wedding, as they meticulously booked their luxurious hotel in the Maldives through a trusted agent. Immediately after their heartfelt wedding ceremony, they boarded a plane bound for the sun-kissed shores of the Maldives, eager to start their new chapter as husband and wife. The first 2 days of their honeymoon were spent in blissful relaxation, indulgent spa treatments, and romantic dinners under the stars. Every moment was filled with love and laughter as they celebrated their union in paradise. On the 3rd day of their honeymoon, Dennis and Catherine found themselves at the beachside restaurant, enjoying a sumptuous seafood lunch while overlooking the enchanting topaz waters below. The gentle lapping of the waves and the soft caress of the sea breeze created the perfect ambiance for a romantic afternoon. As they savored the last bites of their meal, Dennis excused himself to settle the bill, leaving Catherine alone to admire the breathtaking view. Then he overheard a conversation at the counter about the beach's current conditions. His curiosity piqued, and Dennis inquired further, only to be met with a sobering response. Sharks had been spotted in the area recently, making it dangerous for swimming. The news sent a shiver down Dennis's spine as he returned to Catherine's side, his thoughts consumed by the warning they had just received. Though they returned to their hotel, the longing to immerse themselves in the crystal-clear waters of the ocean lingered in their minds. Despite the warning, Dennis and Catherine couldn't shake the desire to experience the magic of the Maldives' pristine beaches firsthand. Dennis and Catherine felt a magnetic pull towards the beach as the sun dipped below the horizon. The allure of the fresh sea air, a welcome change from the artificial coolness of their hotel's air conditioning, beckoned them to the shore. Despite the earlier warnings and the somber atmosphere over the beach, the couple couldn't resist the ocean's call. They found themselves at the beach pier, where they sat hand in hand, silently soaking in the evening's tranquility. Once bustling with activity, the beach now lay deserted, the only sound being the gentle rustle of the palm trees in the breeze. Yet despite the eerie calm, a sense of peace enveloped them, as if they were the only two people in the world. As the moon rose high in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the water, Dennis's mind sparked with an idea. Why not take advantage of the deserted beach and indulge in a romantic swim under the moonlight? With a mischievous twinkle in his eye, he shared his suggestion with Catherine, who responded with an enthusiastic nod. With their decision made, Dennis and Catherine wasted no time shedding their clothes and wading into the cool embrace of the ocean. The water enveloped them like a lover's embrace, its gentle caress a soothing balm to their souls. They laughed and splashed like children, their voices mingling with the rhythmic lapping of the waves as they ventured further from shore. The water stirred some distance from them as if drawn by the night or their murmured conversation. Catherine noticed the disturbance, and her attention was momentarily caught. Unknown to them, danger was concealed beneath the surface, hidden within the shadows of the moonlight. Dennis and Catherine's carefree evening turned sinister as the ripples transformed into a dark, ominous shape. Dread crept into their hearts like a cold, clammy hand as the shadow grew more extensive and defined. With mounting horror, they realized they were not alone in the water. A massive form circled beneath them, its sleek silhouette a chilling reminder of the ocean's untamed power. It was a more formidable giant shark than any they had ever encountered, its eyes glinting with predatory hunger in the moonlight. Fear seized Dennis and Catherine in its icy grip as they stared down at the creature, its presence casting a shadow over their once idyllic evening. With trembling hands and racing hearts, Dennis and Catherine knew they had to act fast. Without hesitation, they turned and began to swim for shore, their movements frantic and erratic. But the shark, sensing their vulnerability, struck with lightning speed, its jaws snapping shut just inches from their trembling bodies. Miraculously, they managed to evade the first attack, but knew they were not out of danger yet. Adrenaline fueled their desperate flight as they pushed themselves to their limits, the shore seeming impossibly distant with each passing moment. The relentless pull of the ocean threatened to drag them under, but they refused to succumb to despair. Yet despite their valiant efforts, the shark struck again, its mighty jaws closing around Dennis's leg with a vice-like grip. The searing pain ripped through his body, but Dennis refused to show his helplessness. With Catherine's support, they struggled to free his leg from the shark's grasp, their efforts fueled by sheer determination and a will to survive. After several tense moments, they finally managed to break free, with Dennis's leg bearing a deep gash from the shark's razor-sharp teeth. But despite the pain and the fear that threatened to consume them, Dennis and Catherine refused to give up. With unwavering resolve, they continued their harrowing journey towards shore, their love for each other as a beacon of hope in the darkness. With Dennis injured, Catherine knew they had to act fast. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, they redoubled their efforts, their minds focused solely on survival. Finally, after an eternity, they felt the soft, grainy sand beneath their feet. With one last surge of strength, they stumbled onto the shore, gasping for breath as they collapsed onto the sand. They changed into their clothes, and Catherine quickly dialed their agent, who arrived promptly by car to take them to the hospital. Dennis's wound was cared for, and the doctors worked swiftly to treat his injury. Though their honeymoon had taken an unexpected turn, Catherine remained steadfast by Dennis's side, offering him comfort and reassurance in the face of adversity. Despite the setback, they found solace in knowing they had faced the danger together and emerged stronger. The Andaman Sea shimmered beneath them as the small boat sputtered towards a speck of green on the horizon. A group of 5 friends seeking adventure off the beaten path had chartered this less-than-reliable vessel and its weathered captain for the day. It was March 21st, 2009, and their Thailand vacation was about to take an unforgettable turn. At the helm of this motley crew was Luca, a seasoned traveler and outdoor enthusiast with a knack for finding hidden gems. Always up for a challenge, He'd convinced his friends to ditch the crowded resorts for this day trip to Koh Mani, a tiny uninhabited island that locals whispered about with a mix of awe and caution. With promises of deserted beaches and untouched coral reefs, he'd painted a picture of paradise. Naomi, his girlfriend, was a passionate photographer, always seeking that perfect shot. Then came Drake and Pamela, a British couple on their honeymoon, who'd struck up a friendship with Luca and Naomi while exploring Phuket's bustling markets. And finally, there was Andrea Ahrens, a marine biologist whose infectious enthusiasm about the ocean world had sparked their interest in this trip. Their morning had been idyllic. After a bumpy ride, they'd reached the island to find it lived up to its reputation. The beach was a crescent of pristine sand, the water dazzlingly clear. They'd spent hours swimming, building sandcastles with childlike glee and taking endless photos. Andrea had meticulously documented the colorful marine life while snorkeling on the reef, his face alight with discovery. It was early afternoon when Luca made a suggestion. He'd spotted a series of narrow inlets winding through the island's dense interior, like veins of turquoise water disappearing into the green. Curiosity piqued, and the friends agreed to explore. They clambered back on the creaky boat, venturing into the labyrinth. The further they went, the more the atmosphere changed. The mangroves closed in, their tangled roots obscuring the sunlight. The air grew heavy, almost stifling. At the helm, Luca had to navigate increasingly narrow passages, wincing with each scrape against the unforgiving vegetation. Then Andrea spotted something unsettling. Shapes flickered beneath the boat, darting in and out of the murky depths. Sharks. Luca had read that bull sharks were known to frequent these waters, drawn by the abundance of fish in the mangroves. Yet the thrill of discovery had outweighed caution. Seeing the powerful silhouettes circling their tiny vessel, their excitement turned to unease. The sense of foreboding grew heavier as they navigated the mangrove maze. Luca killed the engine, the sputtering replaced by an ominous silence broken only by the dripping of water and their increasingly anxious breathing. The sharks, seemingly sensing their vulnerability, grew bolder. One huge bull shark bumped the hull, sending a tremor through the boat. Panic crackled in the air, the friends huddling closer for a semblance of safety. Suddenly the boat lurched violently, throwing them off balance. The bull shark had rammed the side, its jaws snapping open in an unsuccessful attempt to overturn their craft. Terror fueled their movements as they frantically righted the boat, their hearts pounding against their ribs. Realization dawned: they were trapped. These channels were too shallow for the sharks to attack fully, but their retreat was cut off. It was a matter of time before the sharks' persistence or their carelessness led to disaster. Luca kicked the engine back to life, hoping to power through the dwindling waterway and reach a more comprehensive section where they might have a chance. The boat lurched forward, then ground to a halt, wedged against an unseen submerged root. They were stuck. Before they could react, the bull shark seized their opportunity. With a jarring impact, one slammed into the stern, cracking the fiberglass. Water rushed in, and the boat started to listen sickeningly. There was no time for deliberation. Luca yelled to abandon the ship, and they scrambled into the murky depths. Mangrove roots snagged at their clothes, threatening to entrap them. But the terror of the circling sharks propelled them further into the underwater labyrinth. Emerging into a slightly larger clearing, they gasped for breath. Drake pulled Pamela, a weak swimmer, onto a cluster of exposed roots while the rest treaded water. They scanned the channels desperately, but the boat had sunk, leaving no trace of their presence. Despair washed over them. They were isolated in this predator-infested maze. Luca, battling rising panic, tried to reason through their options. Swimming back towards the open ocean was a death sentence. He forced his mind to focus, drawing on all his survival knowledge. If they could reach higher ground in the island's interior, they could signal a passing boat or at least gain a better vantage point. The water around them churned ominously. The bull sharks, thwarted of their sinking feast, continued to patrol the channels. They moved as a group, keeping a vigilant watch below and above, and pressed deeper into the mangrove tangle. Luck, fleeting as it was, seemed to guide them. Stumbling upon a narrow, muddy slope, they scrambled up onto drier ground. Ahead, a densely forested hill rose, their only chance. Just as they were about to lose faith, a distant sputtering noise broke through the sound of the waves. A boat, An old, rusted fishing vessel was approaching the island, perhaps drawn by the faint wisps of smoke still spiraling from their pathetic fire. Frantically, they fed the flames, the smoke growing thicker. From their vantage point in the trees, Andrea and Pamela waved their arms, their shouts mere whispers swallowed by the breeze. The boat seemed to hesitate, then change direction. It was coming towards their beach. Miraculously, the fishermen had spotted them. Within minutes, stern but kind faces were helping them into the boat, providing water and rough blankets. The ordeal was finally over. They had cheated death. The voyage back to the mainland was a blur of exhaustion and relief. But with each passing hour, the island of Koh Mani grew smaller on the horizon, a fading nightmare edged with the bittersweet taste of survival. As the bustling port came into view, signaling the return to civilization, they exchanged weary, knowing smiles. They'd faced the abyss and emerged unbroken, forever bonded by their shared trauma. The ocean would never again be a place of carefree joy. It was now tinged with respect, fear, and the bittersweet knowledge that nature's beauty masks a brutal struggle for existence. It all began one summer afternoon when Alice, a bubbly and adventurous soul with an insatiable thirst for exploration, stumbled upon an old bookstore tucked away in a narrow alley. As she browsed the shelves filled with forgotten tales and faded memories, she stumbled upon a copy of a sea adventure novel from the 19th century. Intrigued by the promise of high seas adventure, she couldn't resist purchasing the book and delving into its pages. Little did she know, fate had a serendipitous encounter in store for her that day. Alice is a 23-year-old student at a university in America who looks older due to her weight. Alice proudly embraces her body, refusing to be defined by society's narrow beauty standards. But she always yearns to do something: swim. Despite her inability to swim, she finds solace and joy in spending time at the beach, basking in the sun's warmth, and listening to the soothing rhythm of the waves. With each visit, she revels in the simple pleasures of the sand between her toes and the salty breeze caressing her skin. As she sat on a bench outside the bookstore, engrossed in the captain's captivating tale, she heard three people's loud voices as they conversed. These folks, which include two men of Alice's age and a lady, notice her, and aside from that, they see the book she is holding, and one exclaims in surprise since he'd been trying to get the book for a long time. There, he talked with Alice about where she got it, and she answered that it was the last one in the bookstore. He introduced himself as Kenneth and the other two as Jose and Donna. They were also students of the same university, albeit in different departments. What united them was the shared dream of spending time at the beach, reading and writing about the beauty of the water. So they formed a group to formalize their interest and attract more people with the same dream. When Alice commented about her interest in marine life, Kenneth quickly introduced her to the group, and she joined happily. They decided to continue their conversation over dinner at a nearby canteen, and their friendship blossomed from there. Over the following weeks and months, the group embarked on countless adventures. However, one of these adventures had a different impact on Alice and everyone at the beach during that time. The day started like any other as the group joined at the beach, where they had planned to go on a trip earlier. After several months with the team, they knew Alice couldn't swim because of her ample frame, so they put her through training and swimming lessons to help her overcome this. They got into the boat and sailed to a part of the ocean where the engine was shut off, and they took out what they brought to eat. Determined to prove that she could now swim, she watched the buoy bobbing in the distance and made a spontaneous decision. Alice announced that she was going to swim to that buoy. Her friends exchanged uncertain glances, but Alice was already stripping off her outer clothes, revealing her bikini, and she slipped into the water. The cold shock of the ocean enveloped her as she began to swim, her strokes determined but unsteady. As Alice navigated the waters, the currents tugged relentlessly against her. Her muscles strained against the resistance with each stroke, and doubts crept into her mind. But she pushed them aside, focusing on the buoy ahead and swimming back. Unbeknownst to Alice, her struggles had attracted an unexpected observer. Under the surface, a great white shark prowled, drawn by the ripples. Then suddenly she heard a scream from Kenneth and Donna, urging her to beware of the shark and turn back quickly towards the boat. She turned towards them with her heart pounding in her chest, as she was scared of the incident. She glanced back towards the boat to see her friends frozen in place, their faces pale with dread. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but she forced herself to keep moving, each stroke a battle against her doubts and the relentless pull of the currents. It would have been better if she had just entered the water. She had long swam away from the boat, and returning wasn't easy. As she tried swimming back, she felt a sudden tug at her leg. She gasped as she was yanked beneath the surface, the cold embrace of the ocean swallowing her whole. Amid the turmoil, Alice's mind whirred into action, seeking an escape. Recalling tales of sharks repelled by abrupt motions and loud sounds, she tapped into a burst of adrenaline. She kicked forcefully and exhaled sharply underwater, aiming to create bubbles and noise to scare the predator into loosening its grip. Miraculously, her strategy succeeded. The grip on her leg relaxed, and Alice propelled herself upwards with all her might, breaking through the water's surface to draw a desperate breath. However, her sense of victory was fleeting. Peering down, she spotted the ominous silhouette circling beneath her, patiently waiting. The incident left Alice shaken to her core. Her friends on the boat were equally horrified, their faces contorted with fear as they watched the drama unfold. Kenneth, Donna, and the others shouted words of encouragement, urging Alice to swim faster back to the boat's safety. Amidst the chaos of the struggle, Jose, who had been stupefied since the incident began, suddenly had a stroke of inspiration. He knew they had to act fast to save Alice from the looming threat of the shark circling below. Determined, he rallied Kenneth and Donna to his side, their faces grim with resolve as they prepared to mount a rescue mission. Without hesitation, they sprang into action, firing up the boat's engine and speeding towards Alice with all urgency. The engine's roar filled the air as they cut through the waves, their eyes fixed on the lone figure struggling in the water ahead. As they drew closer, Alice's heart leaped with hope as she saw the boat approaching. With renewed determination, she pushed herself to the limit, her muscles burning with exertion as she fought to reach the boat's safety before it was too late. With a final burst of effort, Alice reached out towards the outstretched hands of Kenneth and Donna, their faces etched with relief as they pulled her aboard with all the strength they could muster. As she collapsed onto the deck, gasping for air and trembling with exhaustion, she felt a wave of gratitude wash over her, knowing that she had narrowly escaped a brush with death thanks to the quick thinking and unwavering determination of her friends. As they sailed back to shore, the tension that had gripped them slowly began to ease, replaced by a sense of profound relief and gratitude for their miraculous escape. Alice huddled close to Kenneth, Donna, and Jose, their arms wrapped around her in a protective embrace as they navigated the waters. Despite the lingering fear and uncertainty in the air, there was also a palpable sense of camaraderie and solidarity forged in the crucible of shared danger and triumph. As they stepped onto the sandy shores of the beach once more, battered but unbroken, Alice couldn't help but feel a profound sense of gratitude for the friends who had risked their lives to save her. At that moment, she knew their bond was more potent than any force of nature, forged in the crucible of shared danger and triumph.